my father was made superintendent, first of all, because there was a case about horses. And the man that was importing horses, my father was essentially a cavalryman. So he loved horses, and we had a stable of about 6 horses, and he was a polo player. He was a polo player even in West Point. I have a picture of his in his cadet uniform on a horse. But I think he decided early on that he was going to be either in the field artillery or the cavalry, because he loved horses. And then when he was stationed in Fort Stotzenburg was the big military fort, and then they had Clark Field, only with about 4 or 6 planes to ferry the officers from Clark Field to Manila for conferences. So it was, they didn't have a whole lot of planes, you know. From Parang, he was called to take care of the Philippine Military Academy.
Baguio.
Because the Philippine Military Academy was falling apart under the previous superintendent. So Quezon said that my father should take over.
And so when the war broke out, he was superintendent of the Philippine Military
Yes.
Academy. That's
And
where they were called by the war.
he was very hurt because he was a ranking officer, and he was in charge of the military academy. And all the generals, General Lim, General De Jesus, Kapinpin, they were holding conferences just in case there would be a war, and not a single one of them invited my father. You know, that was politics. And he would see them going and attending, because we were in Camp Allen, and Camp Allen was a training center for officers, and he would know that they were there, and not a single person, and he was a ranking officer and the head of the military academy. And of course I know who was responsible for that, but I won't say who. And then when war broke out, Quezon said, they were everywhere in Bataan already, and Quezon said, give Segundo a division. So we were in Parang at that, no, we were in Parañaque at that time, and my father was, what you call it now, he was the last general appointed. And you know, General Lim, General De Jesus, and I forget who, Kapinpin, they had already gone on maneuvers.
Bataan.
And my father was superintendent of the military academy and a ranking officer, and no one invited him. He was hurt. And
nevertheless, he went to Bataan.
Yes, because it was Quezon who said, give Segundo a division. And all those divisions that had already gone on maneuvers there, and they knew exactly where their positions were, they weren't put in front. It was my father, and he did not have any real troops because they had already been assigned to the other divisions. So my father had very good men, leftovers, and he had mostly his cadet officers from that he knew,
from the academy.
because he was a superintendent of UP Cadet Corps for a long time, so the young lieutenants knew him. And then, of course, he was at the military academy, so the senior classes were assigned to my father. So instead of putting my father in another line, since Lim, De Jesus, and Kapinpin had already gone on maneuvers, they sent my father to the front lines. And of course,
Bataan held on for 3 months, right?
they held on. They held on. And, gee.
When the Japanese finally overran and Bataan was conquered, you and the family started going on that death march, right?
Yeah, because my father had us go first to Baguio, and then he heard that the Japanese were after the families of the U.S. Army officers. There were, the U.S. Army officers were Lim, who was already retired, Kapinpin, my father, Salvador Reyes. Salvador Reyes and my father were West Point graduates, and so was Colonel Garcia, Rafael Garcia.
Yeah.
He was a year ahead of my father.
So when Bataan surrendered, you all walked. He joined the death march, right?
Yeah, we joined the death march. We were in front of the military, in front of
the Japanese,
the capital of Bataan, Balanga. There he had a very beautiful park, and we were resting there, and Amado Martilino went to get drinking water, and on the way he met a very good-looking, tall, good-looking Japanese officer who was educated in Yale. So he talked to us, and because he got down from the truck and was interested in what's this family doing, and then he said, when the truck comes back from delivering supplies to the front lines, that was Japanese front lines, you can take the truck and I will bring you to where you need to go. He was very good. He was an MP, and he had a motorcycle. And then, so we were all very happy, and when his supply truck came back, we loaded what we needed to load. We had our houseboys and male companions in the truck, and the girls were hauling all the stuff we went to go. And this Army lieutenant, this good-looking Army lieutenant, was okay. And then when the MPs passed, he started like he had just discovered us. We were 3 military families from West Point. We were the families of Pastor Martilino, and then Amado Martilino. He was not a West Pointer, but he was a ranking officer, and then my father's family, because my father was in intelligence, and he was told that the Japanese were interested in getting a hold of the officers that were pro-American.
Yeah, so you started that trek from Bataan along the way, Pampanga and so on, right? You were
Yes.
you were in a vehicle, or you were the families?
What happened is that we went there fully equipped. When we ran to Bataan, we were able to select a very good site, and we had brought a lot of supplies because the Zwelig people were important importers of
Canned goods.
canned goods. They were in charge, so we had a lot of pork and beans, corned beef, etc., etc., because Zwelig was the main importer. And the Zweligs were very good friends of the family because they were renting our Taft Avenue house. And they were wonderful people. And of course, because they were Swiss, they could move around.
Your father was incarcerated in Capas, right? How long was he in Capas? As a prisoner of war?
I think in June.
April to June.
In June, he passed by where we were hiding, and that was in Pasay, because it was near an uncle's house.
That's when he was released from Capas.
To take charge of the sick soldiers. They set up a malaria center. The Americans were already incarcerated in
Cabanatuan.
Los Baños, but we never were allowed to communicate with them. And then my father was sent to Los Baños to take care of the soldiers that were suffering from malaria. So we were given a house by them. They incarcerated the Protestant minister, and my father said, "You took my house, so you have to give me a good house." So we were able to stay in the Bowman house, which was very beautiful. It was
In Los Baños.
Huh?
In Los Baños. In Los Baños.
No. Yeah.
And you stayed there for a couple of years, right?
At about 3 semesters, because I was able to go to school
During the war.
during the war, but I could not take any English courses. I could only take natural science and chemistry and math, but no English courses.
When
There was a fellow that was reporting to him every Friday.
about the intelligence situation.
Yeah. And my father knew what was happening with the guerrillas in Bulacan. This fellow came every Friday, and they would be locked together, in the porch, and he would come about 1:30 and would leave about 5:30. So I never asked my father about anything. My father brought us to Ilocos with instructions that we should go to the mountains. But he returned, and he was living leisurely in Santa Ana in a very modest, nondescript house. And then, of course, I don't know what happened, but it was our gardener, not exactly a gardener, but a distant relative that was with my father. And I learned from our houseboy that the Japanese came And
This is 1944.
I think it
Yeah.
was 1944. The Japanese came. They parked in front of our house, and there was a masked man with a bag over his head with holes, and he was pointing. So they went upstairs, and my father was reading books, and they rushed him down. He was just in a pajama pants and a t-shirt. They rushed him down, and he even lost his slippers rushing down the steps. And then they would not have picked up my brother. They thought he was a houseboy. He was on the phone talking about a business deal with some merchants, because that's the way they raised money to live. And they let him alone. They thought he was a houseboy. But then they threw all the books out of the 2 bookshelves that we had. My father had a lot of books, and so did I, with my English texts. And they found behind the books my brother's military uniform. They would not have taken him.
He was a cadet, right?
He was a cadet. So they found his uniform behind the books, and they recognized him. So they rushed him down, and that was the end of it.
And you never saw them again?
No, we never got any real account except from the houseboy. And the houseboy was intelligent, and he said before my father was taken, they were already watching. And I don't know who it was that pointed out my father's residence, but what I know, it was a young U.S. Army officer who was married to an American that were living in the vicinity. He had been taken first, and he was in Fort Santiago, or else Far Eastern University. And I understand that when he came out of prison, he looked so well. He hadn't been tortured. He hadn't been, in spite of the fact that he was married to an American, he hadn't been tortured at all.
So in other words, he compromised himself in the end.
I think he compromised himself. So that's it, and that's the last we heard.